Hello, and welcome back to the Product-Led Festival. A big thank you to our partners and speakers for helping us feature amazing content over the 3 days, looking at the core building blocks of product-led growth, from discovery and experimentation to metrics and measurement and everything in between. A quick reminder to join our Slack channel to interact with other attendees and join selected speakers for Q&A. You can find the link in the menu at the top of this page. Enjoy the festival.
Creating internal intentional disruption. My name is Pallavi Shingte. I am the product manager at FactSet Research Systems, where I help build reporting products for institutional investors. We have an impressive group of panelists with us today with diverse experiences across the industry. So without further ado, I'm going to kick this off with introductions. So why don't we do a quick round of introductions? David, Jay, and Alex. We can go in that order.
Very good. Hey everyone, I'm Dave Walkendunk. I'm the VP of Product for Impeccable, a Bay Area design and development studio. We focus on building products mostly for the enterprise. Have spent the better part of 10 years working in product and innovation. Excited to see everyone.
I'm Jay Anderson. I work for BitBrew, which is a vehicle IoT company. I'm the director of product there, and I've been doing innovation and product stuff for about the same period of time, about 10 years.
And I'm Alex Groisman. I'm the Senior Director of Advanced Advertising Product Development at Spectrum Reach. We're the marketing services arm of Charter Communications, large cable service provider, and we provide marketing services to businesses looking to advertise in the local communities.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a combined experience of several years. So this should be interesting. So given the question on everyone's minds, with the situation that we're in right now with COVID, the first question I have, and I think this applies to everyone, so feel free to chime in with your thoughts. How has the industry had to innovate in the wake of COVID, the industry that you're in? And then in particular, how has your organization had to innovate? If you could just speak to that.
I can start. So I work for a very small company who is owned by a medium-sized company. So we, I think that the impact for us has been more just around accommodating the customers that we have. We work with a lot of insurance companies that want to be able to collect data from vehicles that are either natively connected. They already have built-in hardware that can send data to them, or we have our parent company has some devices that plug into the vehicle. So either way, we're taking or giving them the types of information they need. But with COVID, people aren't driving right now, and so there's lower volume. However, customers are trying to save money and they're switching to these like pay by the mile plans and stuff like that. So for us, actually, business has been pretty good. So I think for us, it's been ramping up in certain areas and kind of putting some other things on hold. And thankfully, we're small enough that we can be flexible and make those changes pretty quickly in terms of prioritization and stuff like that. So that's been the main challenge for us, is just really trying to be receptive.
So to add a little contrast to that, I work in a very large company, and we're part of an even larger parent company. So we're used to relatively small, minor tweaks in our business in terms of incrementality. COVID has obviously disrupted a lot of our customers, a lot of our business partners, and it's created a sense of urgency to innovate at a rate that probably 6 months ago would make most of our leadership team uncomfortable to move at. But given the very large headwind that has impacted the economy as a whole, and the macroeconomics associated with it that impact our customers, we've shortened the life cycle of decisions. We've accelerated the willingness to try change, and it's really made it easier to introduce an innovative idea and to run with it as part of a larger organization than otherwise would have been typically expected.
Great answers. I'm actually excited to hear more on the insurance front. Some of our clients are actually in the insurance industry. We've seen some interesting trends from an investment perspective, especially in product. So our firm is just a smaller boutique agency based in the Bay Area, primarily serving the enterprise. So I'd say organization-wide, we've actually, from an innovation perspective, right? We have our agency practice, which we serve other clients, but then as we look to disrupt ourselves with investing in new product, as a relatively small firm, right, we've had to actually pull back in innovation and reinvest the R&D dollars that we would have invested into new product development back into the core. So that almost became a toggle for us, where to conserve funds and to extend runway as a bootstrapped organization. So we've actually had to dial back on innovation, which has been a necessity to get through this period. As we look at our industry, specifically our clients on the agency side, we've seen two trends. One, we've seen firms more similar to Alex, where they know they need to innovate or they're not going to get through this period. So projects that maybe were 6 months or 9 months or 12 months out are now all of a sudden at the top of the list. And those are like, I need a quote and an SOW yesterday to start those projects. So those are exciting and interesting. The larger enterprises, which I unfortunately can't share names, but I'd say the large, think very large Bay Area technology companies, we're seeing two trends. One is there's a general pullback in new ideas, as in they're also just kind of in a wait and see mode. So maybe projects that we were bidding on for projects in Q3 or even Q4, those are now paused because they want to see what's going to happen. And I think when we actually initially met for our conversation a month or so ago, we're now starting to see those open up a little bit. So a month ago, I would have said those are frozen. Now a month later, I'm telling you it's opening up a smidge. And then for other clients, which I can share the name, Adobe, they're actually, from an enterprise side, actually still expanding opportunities. And they're actually seeing firms as well make switches to Adobe because now is a good downtime to do it, in addition to their opening up developer funds and designer funds to help keep smaller partners afloat as they look to get through this period.
That is very interesting. I've seen kind of a similar trend in our company as well, similar to what Jay spoke about with respect to like just having that flexibility to expand. I think depending on the size of the company and what stage the products are at, it really changes how what approaches to this type of disruption or innovation would work better on a case-by-case basis. So all great answers there. In terms of like lessons that you've taken away in from a readiness perspective, is there anything that you guys would like to share? Because this pretty much caught us all by surprise. What are your firms doing, or as individual product leaders, what approaches are you taking to be ready for future disruptions in the industry that could lead to a situation similar to COVID? Maybe not on such a global scale, hopefully, but being able to just respond to change faster and in a more measured manner.
One lesson I think that we've taken.
Go ahead, Jay.
One lesson I think just for us that we've taken is, dependency on one industry is tough. Now, you might have a business that really relies on one industry by design, and that's, that is what it is. But, I think for us, we've been really trying to think outside the box. And while, we're lucky that the main industry that we work with has been resilient and, we continue projects and things like that, we recognize that things could have been different. And so I think we're now kind of spending a little bit more time trying to think about other types of opportunities so we can have a more diverse client base in case there's something else down the road that like were to happen, or maybe that this particular crisis continues beyond what we had been planning. So I think for us that's really, we're just expanding our thinking in that way for future planning.
From our perspective, when we think about readiness, I think we're taking a more comprehensive approach. Not just what are we doing, but what are our customers doing, what are our partners doing. Having a cable company, a very large telco company as your parent business, our largest asset is buried 6 feet underground on domestic soil. So we're fairly resilient towards economic crisis. But what we've discovered was many of our customers are much more fragile, especially the smaller businesses. And while they're geographically distributed, when a national crisis hits, it impacts our customers across the board. So we've started looking at what we can do, and it's partially coming from a position of social responsibility in some of the communities we serve, but also from a business sustainability perspective. What can we do to help some of our customers weather the storm? Maybe we could offer better financing terms on our products. Maybe we can subsidize some of our vendor relationships to make sure they could weather the storm. Maybe we have a backup vendor relationship that we can easily plug and play if one of our partners had to fold. A lot of our readiness is looking at a few layers deeper than we probably would have looked at 6 months ago in our business.
Yeah, I would say what we're doing at Impeccable is, at this point in the COVID journey, feels like we're through the initial sprint of the impact for what COVID was maybe to all of our organizations and us as a small firm, where we're now reaching the point where members of both our leadership team and our individual contributors are starting to acknowledge that they need a break, right? They've all been in just this absolute all-out sprint to make sure that we as an organization, we as a smaller boutique agency, are going to get through this, and that we're going to be able to remain, solvent through what this initial shock of COVID meant to us. So right now, where we're focusing on our readiness is one part in people. So starting to have an honest conversation with, are people taking care of themselves? Because if they're not personally able to take care of, not just like, are they staying safe, right, from COVID and staying safe in their communities, but now mentally safe. Earlier in this call, before we started recording, we were talking about the parents in the call and how we're going to manage this summer. So starting to transition from staying safe to staying sane through what is likely going to be a number of months, if not quarters, of this strain that's being put on both our team and our clients as we think about supporting them. The second thing we're doing from a more legitimate innovation perspective is, now that the dust has started to settle, you're starting to identify those pain points. And it's funny, actually, Spectrum, in theory, could be a large client of ours. It could be a client of ours because they're large and they sometimes need help with digital disruption. But now those folks are starting to normalize. There's that initial shift that everyone needed to make to support this, likely going remote, working from home. And now people are starting to standardize and identify those pain points, right? So now working from home, or working, having to homeschool your children, or having to work remotely, or having to manage clients remotely, now that pain is starting to emerge. And I think existing tools like Slack and Zoom were sufficient for those of us that have been remote for a while. But now I'm really excited for the new innovation that's going to come, right? As now we're 2 months into this, the entrepreneurs and the founders and the innovators really out there pushing limits are going to start to find unique solutions to solve for hopefully some of these pain points that we all are going to be having for some period of time.
I completely agree. My gym class recently tested out a new framework for collaborated expert classes, which was it was pretty cool. Like, I think there were a few boutique gyms in New York that were doing that, but we will probably see a lot more of that. So yeah, very excited for the opportunity there. And I can completely relate to, diversifying the client base that Jay spoke to, as well as, taking care of our customers, the social responsibility aspect from Alex, as well as the, taking care of the employees and taking care of yourself. So yeah, that those things don't change even in the long run, crisis or no crisis. I think they're just sensible things to do. So we'll hopefully all come out stronger at the end of this. So switching gears a little bit into like the company culture aspect, how do you think the company culture affects the ability of an organization to innovate. So this is not just in the wake of COVID, but just in general, what aspects of like the processes or the philosophy or, you know, the type of people even that are hired, do you think impact how the organization and has the ability to innovate?
So I think for me, like one of the things I've observed is, you know, again, working for a small company, I think that the culture is rooted in innovation from the get-go. And so there's less of that. But when I think back to some of the folks that I've worked with in a consulting capacity in previous life, you know, I think that there are, I'm guessing, I would surmise that there are a lot of companies right now who are kind of like for the first time kind of realizing that they're more flexible than they really are. And I think that that's probably going to be one of the positive takeaways from this whole thing, is that there's going to be a more recognition that work can get done in a lot of different ways. And that in and of itself, I think, is going to enable a different mindset around innovation. Again, thinking back to some of the larger, more established companies who have more established ways of working, I think this is going to be a really illuminating, you know, time that I'm hoping is going to have a good transformation effect that is sustainable. And
I like what you said there with companies realizing that they're more flexible than they probably gave themselves credit for. I think that it kind of perfectly sums up where most large companies, large organizations are probably finding themselves in. Innovation and disruption is a pretty scary thing when you're a market leader, when you're a large established market leader. You know, if your back's against the wall, if you're a startup with limited runway, innovation is a path forward. So it's something that's embraced from day one. When you're and everybody likes talking about themselves as being innovative, but once you've unlocked that innovation and you've established yourself in a market, innovation is risk. It's risk that might take away your place on the mantle. So a lot of especially senior leaders that are responsible for keeping that path going, I think probably didn't give their company enough credit for the level of flexibility they actually possess until their backs were against the wall, like most of us found ourselves at with COVID. And then it was an easy decision, innovate or die. So now we've seen a lot of businesses make pivots, make large, drastic, innovative decisions and moves and investments, and some of those have paid off really well. So I'd be curious to see how that culture continues to change in the future in a post-crisis, post-COVID environment. I'd love to see innovation being more included in culture amongst leaders in large organizations. I found in the past that it often takes quite a bit of a battle to bring forth innovation in a large organization to get that consensus to move forward. And would love to see some of those timelines compressed and still risk-averse climate, but willingness to try more innovative things.
Alex, a question to follow up on your I think assessment there from a larger corporation perspective, I think is really interesting. Do you, now that we're, what are we, 8, 10, 10-ish weeks, depending on what part of the country you're in, into this, are you getting a sense from your peers and senior leadership that this innovation thing, this ability to be nimble, removing red tape, is it looked upon as, wow, like this is great, we can actually get stuff done, or is it like a begrudging, as you mentioned, backs against the wall, we have to do this, I can't wait to get back to the old way we used to do things, which was structure, bureaucracy, process, months of decision making versus like, we literally have 48 hours to make this decision, go, right? Like, what's the sentiment internally at a larger corporation on innovation right now and what they're looking forward to?
Well, I'm sure it does vary from company to company and climate to climate. I know we have 95,000 employees at Charter, and those are spread across, I think I heard 41 states recently in terms of where offices are. So a place like New York that's more heavily hit versus a place like Phoenix, Arizona, which is more rural, we have much different perception. Even our senior leadership is fairly spread out. I've definitely seen folks embrace the fact that we're able to pivot quickly, but there's always some begrudging acceptance of that embracement as well, which is why I'm curious to see 6 months post-crisis, once everything is back to normal, which side of that tug of war is gonna win. I don't think we'll probably ever go back to the culture we had before, but I wonder how far the needle's actually moved.
Yeah, I'm having worked with both, I'll say, some of the leaders in innovation. You know, we've done work with Google X and Google and Accenture labs, and a lot of labs programs. We actually help them get their ideas out of the lab, you know, kind of seeing how quickly they, you know, actually the time it literally takes to innovate and build new things like that. That is also, some of those larger, those are like 10-year investment cycles that just take a long time. I'm with you, Alex. I'm curious to see how, especially folks that said, oh, well, we could never work remote, right? For knowledge workers who maybe had a forced office culture and now they figured out that they can. So the disruption and innovation that's going to occur within real estate and working from home, especially as we look at this life cycle that's going to need to occur, right? With going back to work, what is that going to mean? This now for certain professions, this might mean working from home exclusively or many days a week is going to be real. So from I guess back to her question, from a culture perspective, it sort of starts at the top, right? This now you're going to have leaders and organizers that are going to have to either continue to embrace this or they're just yearning to get back to it. Be curious what that norm will be and what's going to influence that.
Cool. Yeah, from the cultural perspective, I do think that it begins at the top, and I've seen sort of like no matter how much the bottom-up culture tries to influence the decision making, it's always a battle if you don't have the leadership from the top providing the same support, like especially for things around like the bureaucracy and the red tape, yeah, it will be very interesting to see how this pans out 8-10 months from now. There's also an aspect of individuals wanting to pivot to this new way of doing things. So David, you spoke about how, you know, some people thought that they could never work remote, and now that they've been forced into it. You know, I've seen some of my colleagues change their opinion and stance on that, who used to be in the New York office every single day, you know, day after day. I'm curious if you think, if like what your opinions are around creating sort of this skill, cultivating the skill of innovation at an individual level. You know, the whole aspect of experimenting, associating related things, and sort of coming up with something new. And we spoke a lot from the organization's perspective, but at a granular level, it is driven by individuals who are coming up with new ideas and, you know, networking with other individuals, building upon those ideas. So the question is, do you think that there are certain things that individuals can do to cultivate the skill to become better at innovating?
I personally, I'm seeing a lot of, you know, communication changes, I guess, being kind of key to that. I mean, I think that for us, we all work in the same office, and so there were a lot of, you know, water cooler type conversations and stuff that would happen that actually turned into planning meetings and things like that, and those don't happen quite the same way anymore. But, you know, with things like Slack or Teams or whatever particular platform the company uses, I think that tends to be an enabler. So I think that at an individual level, just learning what tools are available for you to, you know, create those connections and have those conversations. But I also recognize kind of what you were saying, Pallavi, too, about how a lot of this stuff, despite individual desires, really does depend on some top-down support in order for those decisions to happen, and into breaking down the red tape and altering those, you know, the procedures, I guess, more than anything. So it really does need to kind of come from the top and the bottom, and yeah.
The root layer coming down to the individual, I think, is a good call out. When we first transitioned in the New York office to remote work, I think we actually saw a spike in our productivity, mostly because we cut out a lot of that water cooler conversation, the in between meeting banter, which we all work in the same office. It's nice, it's relaxing. We create a good culture and a good climate. And when everybody's remote on their own, it's very easy to stack back-to-back meetings. And about a week or two in, I started noticing a burnout effect, and we had to innovate how we were innovating. We put a lot more emphasis on middle management layers, to doing regular check-ins, casual check-ins, doing things that mimic a remote version of a water cooler conversation or getting together for lunch. It's little things like that are important towards the team culture and team unity and emotional and mental health for the organization. And it's easy to let that slip through the cracks. And I think with a smaller organization where, and I come from startups in the past, so I've worked on teams where the whole company is 7 people or 15 people. Everybody knows everybody, and that doesn't scale well when you have 95,000 people. So I could be talking to somebody who's having a really bad day, and I might only speak to them once every 6 months, and I'll have no idea. So relying on a level of middle management to be the glue that kind of holds each individual together to the company, and act as a communication path both down and up for feedback is super vital for the success of our business as we transition to remote work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Alex. We've seen similar challenges, especially with having to innovate how you innovate, right? So back to the high level question, can an individual innovate bottoms up as well as needing organizational support to bring ideas to market? And I think at a high level, I think the answer is yes. I think just about anyone, regardless of skill set or if your title has innovation in it or you work in that department, I think, even if you work in the accounting department, I think you can learn to be innovative. To me, it's more of a thought process and more of how you think about solving problems during your day-to-day. And to me, it comes down to being able to either learn. There's countless books on innovation that teach process, even down to, Google personally has a ton of assets available, be it on how to put together design sprints or just design thinking or any sort of innovation process. It's learning to have just a set of tools, systems, and process to break down problems in a consistent and methodical way, and then learning to have a hypothesis for wanting to improve. So to me, it's a mindset of wanting to be innovative, regardless if you're in that department. With that, I think you can then work your way up to identify new ideas, propose them, have them evaluated. Whether or not leadership chooses to take those on or not, I think is irregardless. It's that ability for you to optimize your own workflow and optimize and improve your own being, which I'd have to imagine, both individuals and families around the country right now are having to be innovative in thinking through what their new days look like, and be it how they're going to handle younger children that have lots of energy or older, children that have a desire for social interactions right now. I think we're all having to be innovative. The question is, do people even realize it? And the answer is they probably don't, but they're doing it now. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on if people can be trained to be innovative, or if it's a skill that you're blessed with.
Yeah, I do think you can be trained to be innovative, and I agree with the bottom-up approach of innovation. In my experience, it still needs sort of like a top-down blessing if you want to make change that impacts the entire business or an entire organization. So my experience as an engineer has been, yes, I can make changes in my technical decision making, which is what spurred me to move from engineering to product, which was like I couldn't impact the product decisions by just being on the engineering side of things, and I had to be closer to the business. So I think it's a balance. For at least from my experience, it has always been a balance of the support from the leadership, as well as the like having individuals who think about problem solving in creative ways. And there are processes, like you all spoke to processes that organizations can put in place to spur on that innovation, like providing more flexibility, the mindset shift to sort of not think of innovation as just something that's, you know, shiny and new, but everyday things like having to innovate and optimize your daily workflow in the age of COVID. So cool. David, you mentioned like books and resources around this, so I'm going to throw a question that we didn't really plan for, but are there specific books that like, or a favorite book or a resource that you would like to suggest to the audience?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my pile right now. I have one back there. One is just called Sprint, which is, I believe is actually powered by someone that was a former Googler, which I think is really good. Another one is Design Sprint. Design Sprint is another book, which was actually written by a former colleague of mine, C. Todd Lombardo, so, and some friends of his. So those are two of my favorites. I don't know if others, I'm cheating right now being able to look at my bookshelf, but the last one is Innovator's Dilemma, which is by Clayton Christensen, so he passed away recently, so phenomenal. I believe he taught at Harvard Business School on just the early stages of corporate innovation. He's a good professor.
Awesome. There's another one by Clayton Christensen and a few other co-authors, which is called The Little Black Book of Innovation, which sort of takes all the learnings from Innovator's Dilemma and Solution and puts it all together. It's almost like a Bible that organizations and individuals can follow to, you know, sort of work through some of these processes and intentionally apply them.
Yeah, the Christensen books are classics. I like The Lean Startup. Like, I've read that probably 3 times, and it's something that when I was at Ford, we referenced a lot. So that's another one that I'd recommend.
Awesome. Cool. So if there was one single takeaway from this whole responding to change aspect, the agility aspect of disruption, that your organization, you would hope your organization takes forward, for, you know, the projects going forward, what would that be?
So I would say in a larger organization, it's the fostering of that innovation at the grassroots level, making sure that people understand that it's welcome, it's encouraged, and giving a voice and venue for people to submit those ideas. It's a little intimidating sometimes when the organization's so big. You're sometimes several layers removed from those senior decision makers or leaders, and keeping that open door or creating a path for those ideas to flow upward, I think is absolutely vital for those ideas to be heard. If there's no clear path on how to take that very innovative idea from an individual and make it a reality, then those ideas just stay with those individuals. They don't actually make it to the overall organizational plan.
So I have a quick follow-up, Alex. Like, do you have any methods or sort of processes in place that Spectrum reach for something like that? An idea bubbles up from, you know, an individual or a group at a grassroots level. How does that actually reach fruition or like get realized?
Yeah, so actually somebody on my team a few, maybe 6 months ago, designed this program we called Idea Farm. And any employee in the company, regardless of what team they're on, can submit any kind of change or idea or new plan innovation into this Idea Farm. It gets categorized by department that it's most relevant to. And on a quarterly basis, the senior steering committee, a group of diverse executive leaders, get together with the president of our company, and they review each one. Now, it doesn't mean every single idea gets implemented. You know, sometimes some ideas fit better than others, but every single idea needs to be discussed, and every single idea gets a fair shake. And we've actually seen quite a bit come out of those that has moved forward for implementation. So it's a good program because it's very clear to everybody where they can submit something, and when you do submit something, you're guaranteed to receive a response from a senior leader, even if that response is it's a good idea, but it doesn't seem to be aligned with our strategy right now. But it's something that everybody knows will be reviewed and discussed as a collective among senior leadership.
Alex, then within the idea farm, then do you have a dedicated group of people that will then execute the concept, or then is it I mean, you're so large, I think I know the answer here, but then is it like get funneled to either the business unit and then the business unit has to innovate internally, or is there a separate shared services group called innovation that will help them with the early ideation? How do you actually implement some of those ideas?
It's a great question. So we don't have a separate group within Spectrum Reach that's charged with innovation, but innovation is a distributed function for us. So when an idea is submitted, if it's something that we want to take on as an organization, there'll be an executive sponsor assigned to it, somebody from that steering committee who'll be responsible for giving updates to that steering committee on a quarterly basis. We do have a cross-functional PMO organization that shepherds strategic initiatives. So they would assign a project manager to liaise cross-functional teams to focus on it. It's a little hard to answer because the breadth and scope of what an idea might be could be anything from painting the walls to launching a new product line. So each idea would get staffed appropriately from various departments, but it would at the very least have a cross-functional project manager as well as an executive sponsor that would both be responsible for coordinating, facilitating, and reporting on progress against those initiatives.
Cool, thank you.
Cool.
So I think Brew, the lesson learned, to get back to the question real quick, I think we have always recognized that people are key, and if you've got the right people, that they'll find a way. And so I think that's just one of the things that I know that we're going to take with us, and our parent company is going to take with us, is that, we do have the right people, and, being able to, innovate our innovation process, and then also just, the ways of working and collaborating and things like that. That's really what's going to take us forward, and that we'll get it done.
Yeah, I would kind of echo two things here. I would say, to remain agile, I would say if you're an individual or an individual contributor earlier in your career, I would say, and you have an interest in this, you just have to start by participating. So if you work in a larger company, there's probably notions like Idea Farm or that idea box that you can fill out, and hopefully they're all as diligent as your firm, Alex, and they actually do reply. That's awesome that they do that. But it's just starting to find folks in programs within your company, or maybe even external of your company, be it different meetups or different programs that are put together. I know in Massachusetts here we have Mass Challenge, which is a way for you to connect and organize with other founders who are trying to solve problems. So just put yourself out there and try. Doesn't mean you have to leave your job and go join a startup, but I think there's ways where you can seek that training, especially these days with so much programming moving online. You can actually take courses to actually to gain some confidence here and some skill set to move ideas forward. Separately, if you're more on the leadership track, or you're already on one of those senior leaders, intentionally carve out space within your organization. People will model what you do. So again, I'll use Alex as the example. So as those ideas do come in, I love the fact that you're going to get a response. It's more than likely going to be a great idea, not today, but that feedback loop, I think, is super important. So separately, if you can do it internally and you're in a position to do it internally, foster it, because good things can happen. Separately, if you can't do it internally, or maybe it's find a startup that could leverage your background and experience. And especially if you have 5+ or 10+ years of experience, I guarantee there's a startup in the ecosystem that would love to talk to you, would love to get your experience. Doesn't mean you have to buy their product. It doesn't mean you have to work for them for free, but just simply that mentoring. And there's a ton of programs either through your local university, through your local startup, or founders organizations like Techstars and others. However you can just give back, it just keeps this entire movement going forward. So just find ways that you can give back once you've reached the other side growth.
That's amazing. You know, from the aspect of all of your answers, the key message is that it's all about the people. So whether it's the leadership helping the individuals, whether it's the individuals, you know, bubbling up their ideas, or whether it's you know, giving back to the community. I think just the mindset of the organization is not just the walls and the brick and mortar, but the people who are actually working to build the product is key. Um, cool. So one other aspect, I noted this down when you were speaking, Jay, with respect to innovating the innovation practice and having individuals who can actually, you know, you said people are key and it's all about the people. But we also need to ensure that we hire the right people. So are any of your mindsets or, you know, hiring practices changing? Do you think those will be changing going forward, to hire people who are more amenable to change and, you know, more open to trying out new ideas?
Yeah, you know, I early on, having been in consulting for a while in this space, always had a preference for folks who had done multiple things in their life. Being able, that was proof to me that they could change. I also think that working at small companies, having worked at small companies and large companies myself, really do allow you to wear multiple hats. And that's always an attractive background feature, you know, for a specific candidate as well. I would imagine that a lot of companies these days, in going into the, I don't know, for years out at least, are probably going to be remembering this time and remembering, you know, that those kinds of flexibility aspects of a candidate are going to be really attractive. I know we are.
I think that flexibility of startup or maybe even consulting experience is definitely vital. It's very common in my part of the organization and inside product, because product and innovation is so intertwined. But I would imagine that many other functions in our organization, maybe more on the finance and operations side, are likely looking for more flexibility. And I would hope that their hiring practices would look to pick up more talent that comes from that kind of background in the future.
Alex, a quick follow-up on that. So, you know, Jay spoke to how in a smaller organization, you end up wearing multiple hats and get an experience that you wouldn't otherwise get at a larger firm where you have a more structured, well-defined role. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on how individuals at larger organizations will be able to get sort of that cross-functional or cross-department type experience and you know, diversify their skill set?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never had somebody on my team come to me and ask for cross-functional responsibility where we couldn't find it for them. I think oftentimes it's intimidating, especially early on in your career, to ask for more responsibility or to explore other functions. But we do it all the time. I do it at a more senior level. People on my team do it at middle management or more junior levels. It's highly encouraged. I often hire people internally from other teams that want to join product, or we see product people leave to join sales or strategy or other marketing functions in an organization. I think easy, open, clear communication is vital. Talk to your manager. If you're in a large organization and you want to explore the roles or other functions, open communication is the best way to do it. The last thing your manager wants is for you to be unhappy or to be secretly looking for that new role behind their back, rather than having an open conversation about it. Chances are they'll be encouraging and open, assuming you have a good manager and it's a culture that encourages this, of course. But chances are they'll help you find the right path and help you explore what your career path looks like. Everybody wants their people to grow. every good manager wants your people to grow. So I would hope that if people are having open conversations with their management teams, then it's easy to align goals with reality.
Sounds good. So David, did you want to add on anything to the whole original question that I had a follow-up on? So sorry, I got digressed a little bit, but with respect to hiring practices, is there anything that you want to share in terms of any changes going forward?
Yeah, I think hiring will almost certainly have to change. It's already changed in the last few months, right? So this notion of you have to go through this formality of going into someone's office, you have to interview 7 people in a room, do like the back-to-back interviews, face-to-face across from the desk, I think is not literally going to be able to happen. So innovation is happening in recruiting right now. I believe that versions of that will continue to go on, especially as you see in Silicon Valley. They're kind of the leaders right now in this trend of saying coming back into work is no longer, they're actually, some are saying like through 2020 and some are saying into 2021, where work where you're most effective, right? There may be some pay adjustments, cost of living readjustments that need to happen, but I think people are going to be totally amenable to that if they can skip their hour of commute each way and a little bit more flexibility to not just work from home, but let's make sure we're adding work from home during a pandemic is way different than working from home in normal times. So yes, there's going to be innovation in this. I just think people need to be flexible. So if you as a candidate were used to, shining in an in-person environment, I think that's going to change. I think there's going to be changes in how we present and how we actually verify we can work remotely. So I think there's going to be more emphasis on what you can write and the actual content you can produce versus how well you can play office politics. I think Alex mentioned before, there used to be a lot of those, in his culture going into the office, a lot of those water cooler, those coffee conversations where you can kind of schmooze your way around certain topics and grease certain people so you look super effective. Well, now when you work remote, it's abundantly clear who's producing and who's not. So I think the hiring practices will start to showcase that.
Yeah, completely agree. We've already seen a lot of changes around productivity in our company, and they've decided to extend the office opening until 2021, which took a lot of us by surprise because it's a very strong presence in New York, and we were expecting offices to open sometime late this fall, but I think it's a big step in the right direction. It also speaks a little bit more to the management's trust in the individuals. So there's the aspect of, like you need to be present to show that you're actually working versus what you spoke about, David, with respect to being able to produce results to show that you're valuable to the company. So cool. I think that's all the questions we had for the panel. So thank you, each one of you, for joining. And I think this was a very enriching discussion. I hope the audience enjoys it. So.
Take care. Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.